You're with Sky News. Still to come, we'll see what's in the morning's papers with royal author Kate Williams and Jonathan Isserby from the Taxpayers Alliance. Do stay with us. Let's have a look now at The Independent, and the story we're going to have a look there is Anders Breivik, the sentence handed out today.
Yes, it's funny actually. This is a story that when it happened last year, it was obviously huge everywhere. But today, he was sentenced, and only one front page actually features it, and that's The Guardian. But it's obviously on the inside of many of the papers. And of course, the thing is, he's got a 21-year jail term, which when I heard, I thought, I can't believe this. 77 people were killed. He gets 21 years in jail. Apparently, in Norway, that is the maximum term that can be given. And at the end of that 21 years, the courts then reserve the right to keep someone in prison if they believe they are still a menace to society. And I think we can be pretty sure that in 21 years' time, that is indeed the decision that will be made. But I was interested in some of the language talked about Breivik, because The Guardian, as Sky has been doing all night, has referred to him as a militant nationalist, whereas The Independent, or the I paper, should I say, refers to him in the language I think is frightfully lazy, which is to call him a far-right fanatic. Now, to give Breivik the terminology of far-right is, as far as I'm concerned, to put him somewhere on a mainstream political spectrum. Now, I would regard myself as being of the right in that, in the traditional political sense, I believe in lower taxes, the economy being freer, privatisation, things like that, having a smaller state, none of which is anything at all that Breivik would believe in. He is on another spectrum. He's not on the traditional
spectrum. But he's
not
interested in the economy. I mean, you'd ask him his thoughts about taxation. The problem is that he identifies himself as political, where clearly the murders he made, they're nothing to do with politics.
Absolutely, exactly.
He is a man who he claims he's sane, but he is completely mad. But he self-identifies as political, and this is the problem here. I mean, it's very interesting, this article at the bottom of the Independent here by Owen Jones saying it's a terrorist attack. He is a terrorist. That's
without
exactly
question,
what
which is why I object to him being described in political terminology, which is, giving him the credibility of being in some kind of political mainstream, which clearly he's not.
And I think what's important is what Owen is saying here, that some countries capitulate to terrorism by becoming more authoritarian, more intolerant, but Norway isn't. Norway is continuing being as this free democracy that it is. But we mustn't become complacent, and we must be very careful about what is racial hatred, about hatred. And this man is a symbol of hatred. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's no way he's ever getting out. I mean, he's going to be in constantly. I mean, he cannot simply get out after 21 years. I mean, Norway believes very much in rehabilitation. That's why the maximum prison sentences are quite low, because they believe that criminals can be rehabilitated. Of course, many prisoners can be.
But the likelihood is that he will spend many years
they'll keep having
prison. What are your thoughts on the fact that he's still been able to get his message out there? He's still been able to communicate and actually contact others.
The judge stopped him, didn't he? He was about to start talking about what he felt about his supporters, and the judge said, "This is not the place for you to be doing this. You can't take over a courtroom with making these ridiculous speeches." And I think, some of these people who do commit these horrific acts of mass murder, they say they want some kind of platform for publicity, and it's almost terrible when they get this.
Oh, and certainly the fact that he's had this computer to communicate with the outside world. I mean, you can just see the headlines on a British tabloid newspaper. If that had happened in this country, I mean, there would have been absolute uproar. So I spoke to a friend in Oslo this afternoon who said that Norwegians react very differently to these things than British people, as he envisaged it, and that Norwegians don't like to show their feelings too much. And I've been surprised by the interviews that Sky's been running during the day with people in Oslo, just how calm and collected they have been by what's happened, but by an absolute tragedy.
I mean, they definitely see him as an aberration. They see him as a terrible aberration that will never happen again. And I think they're absolutely right. I think he clearly, it's very interesting, when we're watching the coverage, the Sky coverage earlier, when they were saying, well, he seemed too organised. He can't possibly be insane so organised, because he'd been planning this for years. He'd been organising for the years. He'd been dreaming of this. And it is shocking that a man who is actually still relatively young can commit such an act and can already be so criminal and so full of hatred.
As the court's decided, definitely not insane.
Quite sane, indeed.
Let's look at another story, completely different, but a story that's concerned you quite a lot over the last few hours, Kate, and this is the Harry pics. This is page 7 of the Mail. The truth.
Yes.
Is this the truth and nothing but?
This is the truth. Well, we've got so much coverage of these Harry stories, and of course the Sunday papers, this is going to be even more. And what I think we're really moving towards here is, you know, is there going to be more? Is there going to be more? Are there going to be more kiss and tells, more photos? I think if we just have these few photos in a stock, if we have photos, videos, loads of kiss and tells, it'll become this kind of juggernaut that the palace are going to find much harder to firefight. But here are, I think, quite a lot of reporters from this country and in fact all over the world have gone to Vegas to investigate the matter, and we've had quite a lot of accounts of what it's like to be at a Vegas pool party. And apparently I was reading that people booking Vegas holidays has soared 30% already.
Really?
Yes, we're all trying to go and party with Prince Harry, although I guess we don't.
Well, we won't all be treated like a prince.
We
though,
won't
will we?
always get, I don't think anyone will be offering me free accommodation at $5,000 a night suite. I mean, I went to Vegas when I was a child at 10, and then I remember that even the waitresses in the fast food restaurants for families, even they were wearing French maid outfits. It's a place that I don't think we need too much explanation about what goes on there. You know, the drinking, the dancing, the girls. You know, we knew this. We know this information, and I think, what do we think poor Harry was getting himself in for when
But Jonathan,
he set
do you
off?
think this story is really trundling on to fizzling out?
I think, you know, assuming that no one has got any more photos and there's no more people willing to sell their stories, then I think it probably will. And I think actually a lot of people direct their anger at Harry for doing what he did, and clearly he was naive, clearly he's learned some lessons. But at the same time, I think people should be directing anger at the girls who have evidently sold their stories for a big fistful of dollars in that.
150,000
Yeah.
reported. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot
It
of
is
money,
lovely.
but this is the thing. I mean, it's very interesting that there were some Essex lads who met Prince Harry, and they tweeted, "We've spent the night with Prince Harry and Ryan Lochte. Couldn't be better." But they won't sell their story. Newspapers have contacted them. They won't sell their story. That's what we're like in Britain. Many of us are very respectful of the monarchy. If we go drinking, if we happen to go drinking with Harry or William, we keep it quiet. But in America, it's not like that. William and
Well,
Harry,
he's just seen
they're
as any other
celebrities.
celebrity,
They're
isn't
celebrities,
he?
and you know, the price of many commodities have dropped since the recession. The price of the celebrity commodity has only gone up. Celebrities are one of the biggest commodities, and these women, they get rich from it. And of course Prince Harry was naive, and of course it was wrong to sell these photos. But you know, that's what is going to happen. People take camera phones, and camera phones, you can't hardly see them being used. And these photos that were in a private room are out there on the internet, in newspapers. But of course, we've seen quite a lot of big pictures taking place in hotel rooms. A lot of the fake sheikhs, those setups, they were in hotel rooms. We've seen a lot of private hotel room photos being used in the newspapers, in the tabloids, for stings. And I think it was inevitable they were going to print them.
It'll be interesting to see how the palace pursues this, because we're told
Well, they're very
that there's going
calm
to
at the
be
moment. They are being
a
terribly
big discussion
calm.
with
Exactly.
Daddy. So we'll see how that develops. Let's have a look at the Daily Telegraph and the story there that we wanted to discuss is the Heathrow expansion, a story that's been around for a while, but it seems that ministers are now putting their heads above the parapet.
It's
in the name
interesting.
of Grant Shapps, really saying that
I've been
we need the
sensing
expansion.
a U-turn has been sensed for some time. There was a piece in the London Evening Standard a few weeks ago by Stephen Hammond, the MP for Wimbledon, who used to be the transport spokesman for the Tories in opposition, him saying, "I've changed my mind. I think we do need to look at Heathrow expansion." Now you've got Grant Shapps, who's a minister at the Department for Communities and Local Government, just outside Cabinet, but highly tipped for promotion, seen certainly as one of the most capable ministers, one of the most capable younger ministers, tipped for great things. He has come out and said in an interview with the Telegraph that effectively it needs to be looked at. And I think this is the clearest sign yet that the government is going to U-turn on this, and not before time, frankly, because if we want to show the world that Britain is open for business, we need to show that we can get people in and out of this country, because airport capacity in the southeast is, there's so little of it left. We need to be able to expand. We need to be attracting business into this country. And so not
Kate
before time the
disagrees
government
on
is
this,
doing this.
I do
point.
disagree. I mean, what I think was quite interesting, the political aspect here is Grant Shapps really lining himself up to take Justine Greening's job. I mean, the Telegraph
that's-
is just
that's the
saying here
interesting
that there's growing speculation Justine Greening is going to be moved out of her role. Of course, Justine Greening represents Putney, which is an area very opposed to the Heathrow expansion because it's going to affect Putney residents much more. And this is, I think, For me, I don't feel we need a third runway. I think that, you know, if we're going to use the excuse that we need to kickstart the economy, we need something bigger, we need something faster.
We need, in the long term, we need something a lot bigger than a third runway at Heathrow. I spoke to a government minister not so long ago who said to me, Heathrow expansion is just a holding option before we build a bigger one.
Well, what do you think of Boris Island, then?
It's certainly a possibility. I don't know about the logistics of what he wants to do in the estuary, but the notion that we need a new airport to massively boost capacity in the southeast is absolutely essential for business, absolutely essential to kickstart recovery. But this U-turn, when it happens, will not be without problems for the government. Kate's absolutely right. The Putney MP, Justine Greening, as Transport Secretary, would have to leave that job. Also, Zach Goldsmith, the MP for Richmond Park, said during the general election in 2010 that if the government changed its mind on this, he'd resign from Parliament.
He's not only has green sympathies, he's also someone, Richmond also is an area affected. But to me, I wonder, we've got a lot of airports, we've had a huge airport expansion over the past decades, and are they bringing in business, or are they just bringing in small flights, cheap flights, the Ryanair, the EasyJet, to be bought by people? Increasingly, those flights are more and more empty. Are people on those flights anymore? They used to be there the whole time.
You've got countries like Brazil and China, which are increasingly our competitors now, who are massively increasing.
They've surpassed us, I think. They've surpassed us.
The danger is they will if we don't build airports and show that we're open for business.
But we import so much more than we export, and we import all this stuff. And they don't. I mean, what do we have increasingly to export? What is our business that we have to send out? We are much more of a service industry. We're much more financial services. Increasingly, what do we make here?
Kate and Jonathan, I think you'll have to agree to disagree while we take a break. And when we come back, reach for the repellent. Why a swarm of mosquitoes take over the bank holiday weekend. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're taking a look at tomorrow's newspapers with royal author Kate Williams and Jonathan Iserby from the Taxpayers Alliance. Hello again. We're going to start off with the Express, and I, for one, am having withdrawal symptoms now that the Olympics are over. But fear not, the Paralympics are about to start, and this is what we're going to have a look at in the Express.
Yes, can't wait. I'm so excited about the Paralympics. You know, starting next week, we've got the opening ceremony on the 29th, which Prince Philip won't be attending, but the Queen will. And this lovely picture here, this countdown of Claire Lomas, who was left paralysed from the chest down after a riding accident in 2007, stood with the age of a bionic suit as she lit the cauldron. And she actually walked the London Marathon last year in a robotic suit. So it's the beginning of the Paralympic flame being carried 92 miles by 580 torchbearers to the Olympic Stadium. So, you know, I mean, what kind of opening ceremony we're going to see next week? I think it's going to be a big ceremony, a fantastic occasion. A lot of the tickets have already been sold. I mean, the ticket sales for the Paralympics have been record, much higher than before. They're absolutely sold out for a lot of events, you know, hugely popular. And some of the events, of course, they're events we really have never seen. I mean, there's things like goalball, which is, you know, for blind and partially sighted athletes. They have to wear a blindfold, and the ball has a kind of sound in it, bells in it, and they throw it between them. I mean, fascinating.
So they blindfold everyone.
They blindfold everyone because some people are their sight is better than others. So everyone is blindfolded, and the ball is thrown between them. So I can't wait to see that. I mean, it's going to be fantastic, and I really think it's wonderful that we're celebrating sport. We've had this fantastic Olympic celebration of sport, and now in the Paralympics. I watched a lot of the Olympics in the US, and very interesting watching the coverage around the world. People were just going, you know, my goodness, isn't this a success? We can hardly believe it. Because, you know, in Britain, we often tend to put ourselves down, to complain a bit, to say things don't work and be a bit self-deprecating. Well, you know, we were absolutely triumphant. And I think Brazil is a bit concerned that they're going to be able to keep up at the same level. It's been great.
Jonathan, were you a fan of the Olympics? Were you glued to your screen?
I was actually. I slightly surprised myself because
a lot of people did.
I found myself watching sports I hadn't really watched before, but you know, not least when you've got British people who were, you know, the leading people in their field, winning medals for Britain, you know, cheering them on. It was incredibly exciting. And I think the whole country felt a certain sense of deflation the week when it all came to an end. So, you know, thinking, oh, what are we going to watch on television tonight? Then there's no Olympics on. So I think, you know, I think we'll get a second win with the Paralympics, and again, I think we'll I think we'll get some amazing stories from some of the athletes taking
And
part.
I think the fact
as well.
that they're sort of being billed as superhumans, I think, we are going to be really, really impressed by what they can do.
I agree, and apparently the word is that we thought that 29 medals was pretty good in the Olympics. That is nothing to what they're going to win in the Paralympics.
Well,
apparently our athletes are storming ahead.
The Royal Mail have relented and are going to produce stamps for any British gold medal winners. And I think the concession is they're not going to be able to do it overnight because they genuinely are expecting so many British medal winners.
I think I think what it really suggests to me is how important state investment is, because there was a huge state investment in sport, massive state investment in sport. 25 million went into swimming, for example, and what's the consequence? We get this huge set of
lottery funding.
Talking of
lottery funding.
investment, and brings us very neatly onto our next paper.
We had one, now we've got so many.
Where are we with the economy? This is on page 2 of the Mail. Is it better than we feared?
There's been a slight glimmer of good news. I suspect the government will be upset that it's only on page 2 of the paper here in the Daily Mail rather than on page 1, because when the figures came out saying the 0.7 drop in GDP, it was splashed everywhere. But anyway, that's the nature of papers for you. Yes, the figures have been slightly upgraded. The economy in the last quarter only dropped by 0.5%, not 0.7%, which is still bad news. That it's not in a great state at all. Some people have said, oh, well, that's because we had the extra bank holiday for the Diamond Jubilee and that makes up for it. So actually, we're just flatlining. Well, no, flatlining isn't too good either. But it's interesting, inside the article, buried is a fact, which I think a lot of people won't be aware of. And this is that despite talk of austerity, government spending was 2.6% higher than a year ago. So, we talk about cuts here, there and everywhere. Government spending is still higher.
But I think the cuts haven't really hit in yet, because so many of those, they have to be graded. And inflation, of course, is going to make government spending higher every year. To me, it's quite concerning that families' weekly spend have dropped by £45. I mean, that's a lot for us to cut down on with our weekly spend. And the economy is not going to grow if consumers don't spend, if we continue to save. I mean, this I think is quite a worrying figure.
But the economy is also not going to grow if government spending is going up and up and up, and people are still being taxed at the level at which they're being taxed, because the country at the moment is far, far overtaxed. And, we want to unleash enterprise. We need to see the government...
I think for me, government spending is the way to unleash, the way to help enterprise, the way to assist. We saw this earlier this week in the Guardian story.
Government spending is why we got into this problem in the first place.
No, I just don't agree with you. I simply don't agree with you.
Certainly that's how Greece got into the problems in the first place, and that's on the front page of the Financial Times. But Angela Merkel saying that she's not written that off as yet, but not giving a timescale as to when there might be intervention.
Yes, a lot of coverage of Greece in the newspapers here, and it's very interesting here. Angela Merkel is saying, Greece is still in the Eurozone. There's these rumours of an exit. I'm ignoring them. They're still part of Europe. But she won't give them more time. What Greece wants here, what the Prime Minister wants, is more time to reach the targets that they've been set by Germany, more time to get these austerity measures in. And simply Germany is saying, we're going to support you, we want you to be part of Europe, but you can't have more time. So really, we're seeing what could be a stalemate coming here, and there's going to be a lot of big decisions in September. Things aren't looking that great for Greece.
Let's try and fit a couple more papers in. This is page 3 of the Mail, right at the bottom. Mozzies buzz in for the wet weekend. Mosquitoes in this country.
So basically, the current wet and humid conditions are apparently perfect for mosquitoes, midges, which apparently are going to be biting us to death over the weekend. Pharmacies have reported a 150% increase in demand for insect bite and sting creams compared with last year. So that said, there's a 24-hour severe weather alert, torrential storms, rain, wind, goodness knows what else.
And mosquitoes. Let's just not go out.
Well,
just saying, let's just stay indoors.
Well,
but let's look on the plus side. At least these mosquitoes don't carry malaria.
No, I love the rain. I love the rain, so I'll just go out and get bitten.
Well,
Kate and Jonathan, we're going to have to leave
abroad.
it there. Thank you very much for coming in. Thanks for going through the papers with us.